welcome in. Today I am really excited about my guest, Ian Nathan, who has just come out with Clint Eastwood, let's just put it that way. Iconic filmmaker and his work. It's a comprehensive book about all his history, before, during, everything having to do with the iconic actor. Welcome, Ian. I am so happy that you took the time to speak with us today.
No, a pleasure, and it's a favorite subject of mine, obviously, because I've written a whole book about it.
Yes. Well, what propelled you to write this book in the first place?
Well, I've been writing books about directors for about a decade now. I've had various different ones published, and often they were kind of what you might call more culty directors: Quentin Tarantino, Wes Anderson, Tim Burton. And I was kind of itching to get into something just with a kind of more history and more classical, and something that maybe said something quite broadly about not only Hollywood, but America as well. And the director that came to mind straight away was Clint Eastwood. And I was a fan, of him, certainly as a director and as an actor. So you have these kind of negotiations with your publishers, and they sort of test the water on the idea and see it. But they came back going, "We think this is a good idea." So, that's where it started.
I just have to say I'm fascinated with all the research you did on each of the films. There's so much information in there. One thing that really I still cannot get over, Frank Sinatra was originally scheduled to play Dirty Harry, but he had an injury when he was making The Manchurian Candidate. I cannot imagine Frank Sinatra as Dirty Harry.
No, I think it was a very different version of the original book and the character. I don't think, if you picture him in kind of the Clint Eastwood mold, it doesn't fit at all, does it? You're like, how would that work? So I think they changed, the scripts changed a lot between the Sinatra version and the Eastwood version. But yeah, it's interesting. Sinatra was a big star in movie terms. He was iconic, certainly in sort of late 60s when that project floated around. He was thought of almost in Clint Eastwood terms. He was the box office guy. He was looking into playing more serious roles. I think he wanted to shed something of the lounge singer idea and test himself. So for a while, he was going to be Dirty Harry.
Well, that definitely would have been changed for him, but I can't imagine him saying "Make My Day" or "Do You?" It just doesn't fit.
Not in the same way.
No. I was going to get to this last, but this is actually a good time to get into this, because in the book you wrote, quote, "Why does one star endure and another fade?" Why do you think Eastwood has had such a long career, both in front of and behind the camera? What is it about him that really has resonated with the public and Hollywood itself?
Yeah, I think there are several things, several answers to this question. In fact, it's one of the main sort of backbones of the book. One is, as a star, he became iconic in the 1970s. He was probably the biggest star in the world. And he managed to kind of cultivate that very well. He arrived, not overnight. He had quite a big career on television. It took a while to become Clint Eastwood. And I think he worked out that to endure, you've got to play the industry very well. You've got to know how to put projects together. You've got to test the waters of the times. But also, you have to sort of step out of that. You have to be separate from fashion. If you're going, otherwise you're just going to be flavor of the day. And I think one of the key elements of him and this idea of him as an artist is that he wanted to direct. He wanted to not only be a star and an actor, he wanted to step behind the camera. And I could think he could foresee longevity. He could see that if I'm a director, I can cast myself for one thing, and I can keep going. And he established a brilliant working relationship with Warner Brothers, the huge studio. And he just, he's a model of efficiency. He makes films relatively cheaply. He makes them very quickly. He gets them out without fuss. He's a very easy man to green light from a studio point of view. And as he's got older and he's made marvelous, marvelous films, we think of Unforgiven, we think of $1 Million Baby, Oscar-winning films, I think he's become like this sort of elder statesman of Hollywood. I think he reassures Hollywood that it's okay. We've got Clint there. He's going to do it, carrying on. We look to him to, no, we're all right. Whatever madness we're doing over here, we've got Clint to remind us that we've done good things in the world. He's sort of like a grandfather figure now to the whole industry.
Yeah, well, I walk through Warner Brothers lot and I see the parking space that says Clint Eastwood, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all the history that has been made through that lot. But when you're talking about he does things fast and cheaply, I mean, you said that he keeps the cameras rolling during rehearsal and stuff, because one of those takes could have been what actually makes it into the movie, because you don't know. So he just keeps it rolling. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that, you know, when he's talked about as this director who does things in one or two takes, who films the rehearsals, this is sort of idea of a sort of impatience, or a guy who just wants to get on with it. But I think actually he's very driven by the story. That is his motivation. That's what he's there for. He's not there to pander to egos. He's not there for the artistic flourish. That's for others to decide. He wants to tell this story, and he wants to tell it the best way possible. And he doesn't see the point of rehearsals. You know, why get a great take without a camera rolling? Why not? Yeah, and he loves that idea, I think, of immediacy. When an actor sort of first does something on a set, there's something else in it. If you've done 20 takes, something's gone. But that first take or the second take, or even on the rehearsal, there's a spark, maybe even a nervousness and uncertainty in what the actor's doing with the line, that Eastwood thinks, yeah, that's the best stuff. That's the thing that works the best. So he just says, right, get those cameras rolling. That's where you make a film.
Well, I have interviewed actors who have worked with him, and they said that it's a fast shoot and it's a good shoot because he manages to bring out the best in everybody. That's magic in itself. But, you know, another thing that has struck me about him is he doesn't, to me, he doesn't seem to have a big Hollywood ego, because I've been at parties with him. He has not been surrounded by a bunch of guards or anything. He just walks around as a normal person. And you say he's driven up to sets by himself. He doesn't need an entourage to accompany him. He's just a regular guy. And when I have been in situations with him, that's all I found. He's just a regular guy. He's very tall. I mean, he just I'd always have to look up to him, but he just is a regular person, a regular guy, no ego. And to me, that's amazing, to having had this longevity within the business.
I think you have to go right back to his childhood, and he grew up in the Depression, and his family were relatively poor. It wasn't sort of Steinbeck kind of situation, but they had to drive around for his father to find work. His father always kind of impressed upon him, you do the work, you are proud to do the work, whatever it is, you earn the money. That's the important thing. And I think he got imbued with an idea of America that's not the pandered world of Hollywood, but it is powerful, and it's part of his work and his vision as a director. But also, I think it's a tribute to his own background, that he has this kind of pragmatism almost, that he doesn't want the silliness of Hollywood. He doesn't, fame, I think he's very suspicious of. He understands what it gives him, and he's had a very nice life and lovely houses and helicopters, but he doesn't want the trappings of that. And he doesn't want it on his set either. He doesn't want fuss. I mean, you talked about these actors who worked with him, people like Sean Penn, who are notoriously complicated. They just said working with him was like an honor. To be directed by Clint as he was in Mystic River. It was just, I'm working with Clint Eastwood. They all understood on that set what it meant. He sort of brings a kind of respect, and it sort of reverberates, I think, out right across the production and right across everything he does in the industry, that, yes, it's Clint Eastwood, and everyone sort of takes a breath and go, yeah, that's a proper guy. That's an institution in Hollywood.
Do you think, I know this is just your summation, but do you think that a lot of the movies he's chosen, he has done so because they have a specific message within them, like $1 Million Baby? and Gran Torino. They all have something specific they are zeroing in on. And to me, instead of just I can't say regular movie, but he really has messages that he wants to put across. And has that been one of the reasons that he chooses the projects he does?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting. You know, one of the ideas of the book is trying to work out if there was a pattern, something that kind of locked his films together, that you could see a subject that he returned to as part of him. And we're talking 45 films, so it's a lot of films. You know, there's a lot of variety in that. But absolutely, there is a sense of what he wants to look at and what he wants to portray. He says he chooses films by instinct, that he just reacts to a script or reacts to a book or reacts to a story. And he just, that's the one. And he doesn't second guess himself. But if you cast an eye across the films, the recurring idea is very much the story is America. And it's America, you know, through the eras, through the ages. Obviously, he's synonymous with the Western, but the Western in a very particular way. It's about how America was forged. Films like The Outlaw Josie Wales, High Plains Drifter, and of course Unforgiven, are about how America sort of clutched civilization from the frontier and became, and not necessarily by sort of moral means, by any means possible. And that idea of interpreting America is right there through to Million Dollar Baby, Mystic River. He hops between genres. He does westerns, he does thrillers, does noir, he does romances, you know, Bridges of Madison County. Yeah, he does a huge amount of different things, but he constantly comes back to this idea of, you know, what is America? What is the American man in that context? What is the American woman in that context? He's very strong female characters. And I think there's a little bit, well, he would never admit it because he's not this kind of guy, that of self-exploration that comes with that there's a bit of autobiography in Bronco Billy, in Unforgiven, in Honky Tonk Man, even in Bird, which he directs but doesn't star in, about the great jazz saxophonist. I think it's slightly a self-portrait as well as a great, you know, a biopic.
And you brought up Bird and the jazz. He's really a musician in himself, and he's composed several songs for his films. Where would you put music as far as acting, directing, music? What do you think is his first love?
Well, the first love is absolutely music. I think he wanted to be a jazz pianist, you know, when in his teens, and he used to play at bars around the sort of Oakland, San Francisco area. But he's sort of like the Salieri figure. He was good enough to know he wasn't good enough, and he knew he'd never be great. And he's, you know, again, he's a pragmatic guy. He's a realist. So he thought, you know, I'm going to love jazz. I'm going to love music, but I'm going to find another pursuit for my art because I can't achieve what I want to achieve with this one. But having said that, you know, he keeps returning to music as a theme in his films. He writes scores, he writes songs. And I think if you look at his directing, if you look at that fluid way he makes films on a set, it's kind of like a jazz musician. You know, he lets the story go. He does odd things with timings. He's quite loose with how he handles plot. He doesn't need everything strictly laid out. And I think that is a musician at work. There's a kind of musicality to the flow of his films and his interest within films. So he would probably say all those things are all part of the same body, the same person. But I think music is the great love in his life.
Well, and I was surprised during the research how many scores that he's added to in his films. I mean, he's all hands on. He acts, he directs, and he does the scoring. So he's the complete package. Unlike so many people, actors, whatever that we have today, he is the complete package. You know, I think, isn't he one of he started out as Rowdy Yates. Well, he did a little bit of other parts prior to this, but he made his mark in the TV series Rawhide. It started in 59 to 65. He's one of the first actors that I can think of that made a huge jump from the small screen to the big screen. Can you tell us what's
Yeah,
he just managed just to seamlessly move on.
What's fascinating about his story, certainly sort of you think of sort of Hollywood post-war 1950s to today, is Clint Eastwood almost gives you the history of Hollywood and the changing times in Hollywood. And when he began, it was the very end of the studio era. So it was he met Jack Warner, he met some of the last moguls, and he was signed on to Universal as a contract player at one point as a very young man. But the studios were changing, and television in the 1950s became huge. It became the thing everyone wanted to do in America. And again, wise to know the times, wise to know what works for your career. And he's got all these skills. He got a job on this television show, this Western television show. And I think it was, he looks back and says, well, he wouldn't be who he was without that. While it's kind of a bit goofy if you watch it now, he learned so much. He learned a lot about directing on Rawhide, about how you get the shots, how you keep going, because it's television. It's none of this kind of pondering around that they did on movies. Television, you just worked. That had a big effect on him as a director. And of course, it set him up in terms of the genre, the Western, the kind of links with it. And it taught him to act. It was his great acting and film school all in one. But I think he got, by the end of it, by 1964, he's itching for the movies. He's itching to escape the hold of Rowdy Yates and be more than that. So it was a great schooling, but I think he wanted to get away from it once he did start sort of acting and directing films.
And he never stopped. I mean, we did TV to film, acting, directing, music, but he also was a mayor. What propelled him to run and become mayor of Carmel?
Well, it's a funny little sort of sidebar in his kind of great career. And he's always, you said you've met Clint Eastwood, and you've seen any interview with him. He's very laid back. He's just kind of like, I get on with it. I do what I do. So you would never think of him as the politician type. Yeah, he's political and he's clever about how he works with the studios and how he works with what he does as a filmmaker. But he's not front and center. He's not that kind of guy. Yet there was his problem in Carmel, where he's obviously lived nearly his whole life. He loves Carmel. And it was about building regulations. It was the most mundane thing about how local businesses wanted to expand. Because Carmel is a beauty spot, the council were very sort of truculent about allowing you to kind of literally build extensions and shop fronts. It was as simple as that. And they all got together with Clint to say, we've got to do something about this. And I think he just got rather sort of pushed into like running for mayor, because the mayor was, the job was coming up. And they said, you run for it, Clint, and you can sort of bring some rationality to Carmel. And that's the reason he did it. He just said, I needed to sort out something locally. I think he wanted to do things with restaurants he owned. He had an investment in the area. But what was fantastic is that he just, said, right, okay. And of course, one superstar Clint Eastwood is running for mayor. Everybody descends on the town, the media. We all remember it was a sensation at the time. And he's just like, I'm just doing this as a little thing I'm going to sort out. But of course, it's now forever Clint, the mayor of Carmel.
And I don't believe he had any visions of going on further with politics, but he did a good job in Carmel. The people there absolutely loved him as mayor.
Oh, yeah. He was very popular. I mean, he got these things sorted. He was very, he was always, he loves Carmel, and he was always, that's where his heart was. I mean, when he did military training as a young man, and he was in a fort quite near Carmel. He used to look over and see the wonderful Carmel seafront and go, I'm going to live there one day. So he sort of lived his dream, and Carmel was that. And it's far away from Hollywood, none of the interference of living in Beverly Hills. So I think it is his town, and I think he served it well. But he was very clear he had no aspirations in politics beyond just Carmel. He was still making films while he was mayor. He made a couple of films. So he was just like, it was a local job. It was something to get done. Now everybody move on.
Yeah, that's something I did not know, because I loved the movie Breezy, and that was 1973. That was not his first directing job. He started directing with Play Misty for Me in 71. I'm just surprised at some of the films that he has directed and he has had his hands on, because they're so varied. They're not all one genre, they're just varied. And I think that's something that does keep him valid within the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that curiosity and that instinct that he has is a great driving force. And it keeps us as a viewer sort of on our toes. You know, we have an idea of what the style of Clint Eastwood is, and there is a style at work. Right from the beginning, he was very interested in telling stories you maybe wouldn't expect him to tell. You know, Breezy came about because he loved the script and a chance to work with William Holden. And, you know, he was a huge fan of William Holden. And he just said, everyone.
Me too. You feel my heart, William Holden.
Yeah, and it's a sort of, it's an older William Holden. So it was sort of a relationship between the two of them. I think that was quite important to Clint. But also fundamentally, he said everyone around him went, oh, don't do Breezy. It's not going to make a dime. What's the point in doing Breezy? And as soon as you say that to Clint Eastwood, he's going to put his, you know, dig his heels in and go, well, that's what I want to do. I mean, like the orangutan movies, Every Which Way But Loose, everybody told him not to do it. Everybody went, you're going to be, you know, the monkey's going to be like front and center. Everyone's going to love him. You're just going to be second fiddle. And he went, I know. And they were huge hits. You know, he just has a sort of certain sense of not taking himself too seriously, very serious about what he does, but he doesn't take the idea of Clint Eastwood as serious as other people do.
Yes, I get the idea from reading your book that he didn't really put the bottom line to Ching as the main reason for doing the movie. He did it because he wanted to, whether it made money or not. What he wanted to do was what he did. And that's admirable in itself.
Yeah, I mean, he's not, you know, he's wise, and certainly, yeah, he wants to make his own films and make them, and but he wants them to make money. You know, he doesn't like flops, and if your films make money, then it gives you the power to make more films. You know, he's an astute businessman in film terms. So occasionally, you would see him have a look around and see what's going on. And films like Firefox, made in the middle of the 1980s, was very special effects driven, very much of that time. And I think he was just thinking, well, maybe I need to know about this blockbuster thing. You know, maybe I should have a foot in that. I don't think it worked out for him particularly well. He didn't enjoy the special effects and the slowness of all that process. But he does occasionally venture out and try different things because he wants to know where the audience is as well. He's not in his ivory tower just sort of making these kind of films that only matter to him. He's a very personal filmmaker, but he wants films to be hits, and hits they are as well. You know, American Sniper was huge, Unforgiven, huge, $1 Million Baby, absolutely massive. $100 million films, more than that. So, he is a commercial investment as well as an artistic one.
Yes. Now, I was under the impression that he has retired, but in doing some research, I see that there is one more film where he acted in and directed called Juror Number 2, and that is coming out in, do you know when? And that should be his very last foray into the business. We don't know, but
we don't know. I mean, it was as I was finishing the book and writing about Cry Macho, his last film he made, and I brought it to a conclusion, like, what a great way to finish, his face against the landscape. And wouldn't you know, 93-year-old Clint Eastwood announces he's going to make another film, a courtroom thriller called Jury 2 or Juror 2. And you got to smile because that's who he is. And I love that in the sense that he says he never takes holidays because his holiday is making films. And he'll keep making films until he literally can't. So, yes, he's 93, and you would expect maybe Juror 2 to be the last film. I think his films are quite efficiently made, so it may be out before Christmas. It comes out next year. It depends on Clint and Warner Brothers. But I wouldn't put it beyond him, if he enjoyed Juror 2, to have another script ready to go. That's who he is.
And, if he doesn't want to go in front or behind the camera, he has written composed some jazz for Diana Krall. So he does work for other musicians. I think, like you said, that's his first love, is music. He's won 4 Oscars. I can't believe it's been only 4. He's been nominated a zillion times, but only 4 wins, which I don't think that actually shows his progress in Hollywood, but Hollywood is Hollywood. But let me just say that this book is for anybody that likes Hollywood, and especially Clint Eastwood. It is just filled. You have done such a good job of putting together so much information about each of his projects, and with your images and everything. It's just a well-rounded, complete look at Clint Eastwood. And since we are coming up on the holiday season, and you did mention that Juror Number 2 could be out for Christmas, I think this is a fabulous holiday gift for anybody interested in Clint Eastwood. This is why I wanted to do this show today, so that we could get people buying this for the holidays. Because if I receive this, I love books anyway. If I received this, I would think, oh, fabulous, a fabulous gift. So
thank you.
Before we leave, we don't have much time. Before we leave, what are your favorite top 2 Clint Eastwood movies? And you
that's so tough. And there's so many. It was one of the great things about writing the book was I got to watch them all again and go on this long journey.
Wow.
But if I just fix on him as director, because that's the main backbone of the book, I would look at Unforgiven, as a film like that I was just in awe of when I saw it. It's an unexpected film and a brilliant film that every time I return to it, it says something different to me. And again, $1 Million Baby, I think, I never saw it coming. And that's Clint Eastwood, isn't it? You thought it's a small film about a retired boxing coach and this kind of rundown boxing ring he has. And then suddenly you watch that film and I won't explain it for anyone who's not seen it, but it has a turning point in it that is devastating. And the one Oscar he's never won, you're mentioning Oscars, is Best Actor. And I think you watch $1 Million Baby and go, he should have won Best Actor. He's so good in that film. Yes. And it's so moving what he does in it. And it says so much about him as an icon and a figure that you think, well, he's never credited enough for his acting. And just watch $1 Million Baby and you'll see what he can do.
And it does have a good message in there as well for those of us who believe in that kind of thing, which I'm sure a lot of people do, with the aging population and the way things are going with the medical field. My last question to you would be, as far as Clint himself, have you ever met him, first of all?
I have met him. I interviewed him. And I got a lovely 2-hour interview. And he was, as you say, he was a gentleman, very laid back. He's very humble. And sometimes as an interviewer, you don't want him to be quite so humble. You kind of want to go, no, but these films are classics. You made these kind of things. He said, it's just a movie. You just want to go, come on. And he doesn't go with the sort of psychological readings of his films. He lets you do that. But he resists that himself. But it's Clint Eastwood. It's a wonderful to be in his presence, to understand, just to enjoy his company was just a fabulous thing.
He's a down-to-earth guy. I mean, every time I've been, he's just there. He's just Clint. He's not Clint Eastwood. He's just Clint. So what was my last question to you? I forgot. Oh yes. He ages well on screen. A lot of actors don't want to take the aging parts and portray their actual ages on screen. He does that, and I give him credit for that. A lot of actors wouldn't do that. Has he, in your opinion, has that been one of his, the way that his career has maintained the longevity throughout this time, is just aging with your own age?
I think it's critical. I think you've absolutely hit upon something that's inherent in his nature, that he was a very handsome man. He's a movie star, good looks that he had. But that's not interesting to him. That worked for a certain phase of his career. But as he's got older, he's honest. And he says, I want to portray my age. And, sort of Unforgiven onwards, you can see him letting it, become real. The thing is, he still has that incredible face. a face that's kind of a landscape in itself that you can just watch and know so much. I mean, he's famous for saying very little but communicating a lot through his facial kind of expressions.
I love space cowboys. I mean, he's a senior astronaut. Come on, that was a great film, bringing together an amazing cast.
Yeah. And it's a film about aging, isn't it? It's about these four actors who have gone on in their lives, but it's the celebration of that. And he keeps doing that. He returns to age as a subject. $1 Million Baby is about aging and getting older. Gran Torino, even, The Mule, which he made a few years ago. He's approaching 90 in that film. And it's very much about age, but in a wry, kind of funny, accessible way where he's still a movie star. That doesn't go away. He's still a movie star.
Well, unfortunately, time has passed too quickly because we could go on. And like I said, he's just Clint. When I've seen him, obviously I get a stiff neck because he's so high. He's very tall, but he's just a regular guy. And I admire that, having been around a lot of Hollywood celebrities that want to be celebrities. He doesn't. He just wants to be himself. And again, for people interested, this is from Ian Nathan, Clint Eastwood, the iconic filmmaker, and his work. And thank you for all your research. This must have taken you so long to do, but it was well worth it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Okay. And again, I appreciate you taking the time. And for the viewers, I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this little chat. If you have, please like, share, subscribe, and if you'd like to be notified of future postings, click that notification bell. All righty, I'll see you soon.